and how they fit into that.
Well, in this case, I'm speaking to the alt-right, the racist tendencies, the sexist tendencies, the anti-LGBT tendencies.
Okay.
For as you're calling as intellectuals, not only make them deplorable, but make them un-American.
That's true.
The people who speak out against protests. Which it's that whole double-edged sword. But you're talking, Shirley, about people who aren't thinking, who will in one talk about the inner cities and the welfare queens and they all want their handouts, and then they wrap up their spiel by saying, "Where's my handout?" And it's like, well. No,
But I have to agree that Hillary Clinton.
Hillary?
Hillary Clinton. No, I said Hillary.
I'm like, wait, what?
No. I do think that saying things like that is not helpful.
No,
I think
absolutely.
that is a really bad political strategy, and it is elitist. I do agree. I don't care for Trump supporters. I don't honestly know any. I think I know 3 Trump supporters, and they probably none of them. I don't think any of them talk to me anymore. But I don't really care for that whole mentality. But calling somebody a deplorable is not going to get them to vote for you. So I do think there's a side in our end of it where we're also isolating, people.
Sure, but the question I think then becomes how do you convince them to be less deplorable?
Is it too late now?
It's funny. I don't think that all Trump support. I mean, maybe this.
Not all, but we're specifically we're talking about the racists and
right. Yeah. Is that now excluding those? The other ones who supported him still supported someone who is racist, sexist, homophobic, and that makes them kind of complicit.
Yeah, they're guilty.
Yeah, even if they're not outright, racist.
I don't think we really know who all is racist, who all is these names that we call. Now, I have a grandson who has a little boy who's 2, so I guess that makes him my great-grandson. And the father says to me, and I can't even remember what came up about gay guys. And my grandson said, "Are you kidding? My son could never be gay." He went into, a fit of anger. So do I have a grandson who is not accepting gay people? And I asked him, do you know any gay guys? Oh, there was somebody at his job. And the guy was really cool, and they used to have lunch together. And then he heard the guy was gay. And that was it. So now I tried to talk a little reason. I go, well, if he was okay before you heard that, what makes him not okay now? So I think that what the intellectuals are missing is the opportunity to interact with people who don't think like they do.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Were you convincing? I mean, did you make your point? To your
well,
grandson?
I'll have to wait to see if my great-grandson turns out to be.
All right, we're going to stay on the topic. One of the speeches that I found really interesting this week was Dan Schneider, who is the executive director of the American Conservative Union, who said that the alt has no place in the Conservative Party, which liberal me was like, yay, awesome. These guys are actually coming around and disavowing the Nazis and the Klan and the people who I think the term alt-right came around and I'm not going to try and get inside Richard Spencer's head. But the fact that they know Nazis are bad, but they also know that they're Nazis. So they don't want to call themselves that. So we're alt-right. It's a new brand of conservatism. Whatever. But then Schneider said that the alt-right are actually left-wing fascists who are infiltrating the Conservative Party.
What?
Exactly.
First of all, how can you be a left-wing fascist?
There is a like a loop.
Yeah.
It does come around, but it is so preposterous. To call it alt-right or alt-right, as I like to call it.
But this again raises the topic that these people are so divorced from reality, and for me, aside from just pointing the finger, and saying, well, hey, it proves it, they're morons. This frightens me because, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but speaking for the majority of my friends, and I think I can say this for everyone in this room, we would like to see both parties come back to reason, or at least some semblance of reason. And, if the conservatives cannot recognize that this is a problem that they may not necessarily have created, because racism has been around for a long time. Modern day Republicans did not create the Nazi Party, but they certainly, through the Tea Party, embraced certain factions.
Well,
or
they didn't say no to
at
their
the very
vote.
least were able. Well, yeah, sure, he's a Nazi, but we got his vote, so I don't want him speaking, but I'll still invite him to the party.
Exactly.
And if they cannot recognize their complicity in bringing the Nazis into the mainstream, be it by bringing Steve Bannon into the White House, refusing to disavow David Duke and the Klan by extension, if they can't realize that this is a problem that they haven't necessarily created, but they've certainly grown it, how are they ever going to come around to reason?
If you want to have any responsibility at all, if Republicans want to take any responsibility at all, they need to get all these Nazis out of the White House. That needs to be their first focus. If you're not going to do, it's like, I worked as a domestic violence counselor for a long time. I worked with a lot of families, and there'll be families where there's extreme abuse cases, and the moms are abused. Most of the cases where the moms were being abused by the dads, and they just think they're going to keep it together and keep sweeping it under the rug and everything will be okay. And then their kids repeat the pattern and they're shocked, the cycle. And I feel like it's this kind of like abused wife trying to sweep everything under the rug. Like, no, there's Nazis in the White House. Your party is the party of Nazis right now. Do you want it to be anything better? If you want to ever go back to being, there's Republicans that were very respectable, even though I was never one. There was whatever, John McCain before the Sarah Palin years, whatever. If you ever want to come back to what you were, you got to clean up you have to acknowledge that these people took over your party. They're the voice of your party, the only ones getting votes in your party. And you have to clean it up. You have to get rid of them. And I don't know how you get I know that's going to be really messy, but I don't know. I don't know how they're ever going to get legitimacy again.
I think there's going to be a special place and a plaque and a golden bust for the first Republican out and sort of stands up to
the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, does anybody here see what we're going through as a result, not in total, but certainly in part, of the Democratic Party not doing their job?
Sure.
Oh, of course.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's interesting, the Democrats are in the process of choosing a new leader for the party.
This very day.
And this is, from what I was reading, probably the most contentious fight they've had in a long time. Because usually by this point in the process, there's a very clear candidate who, is going to be elected, and they just hold the election as, what's the word I'm thinking of? Just a,
formality.
Yeah, thank you. As a formality okay, yeah, we voted and it's Democratic and we're Democrats and hooray. But you've got the two main contenders right now are Keith Ellison and Tom. And it's interesting to see who in the party and who around the party is supporting which candidate. For instance, we're here in LA. Our mayor is supporting Perez, and Bill de Blasio from New York is supporting Keith Ellison. Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders is supporting Keith Ellison. A lot of people are saying that Perez is too much of an establishment Democrat, because he has served, I think he was the Secretary of Labor under Obama. But, essentially they're saying that his resume is hurting him. But every time I've seen him speak, he seems really rational and really reasonable. So it's a tough call. It'll be interesting to see who actually gets chosen to head the DNC and where they do wind up taking the party.
To the point, I think that liberals and the Democratic Party became so complacent under Obama, and also the fact that we actually used this term post-racial is so preposterous and hilarious. I mean, to just sit back for 8 years and sort of allow this horrible kind of underbelly to grow and grow, and now we're seeing the results of it in Trump. I think that the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do, but I do think also they're quite energized now, as evidenced by these town hall appearances that have people fired up.
Well, and also the marches, the obviously the women's march, which was huge. Last week there was a march for immigrants. In April, and I can't believe we actually need this. There's a march for science coming up in April. Jesus freaking Christ. I am going to sound like an elitist intellectual that I have been accused of and pretty much am. How fucking stupid are people that we need a march for science?
Very stupid. But can I say something in terms of marches? The problem, though, is with the Democrat Party is not the leader of the marches. They're not taking. I don't see with Democrats leadership. Like, there's people like Kamala Harris, who I'm very glad I voted for. Whatever. But in general, I don't see that Democrats are taking leadership. I think everyday people are taking leadership and they're taking credit. And it's like I voted. That's the only party I've ever voted for. But now I'm getting really frustrated with Democrats because I'm like, where are you? You're not showing up. This country's going to hell. Republicans are taken over by Nazis, and we've been voting for you. A lot of people vote Democrat. We don't even. I don't care about the Democrat Party. I'm much more left than that. But I would rather have. For me, let's keep Democrats in office to keep Republicans out. That's where we're at now, and I'll keep voting. But like all of us who are voting for them, election after election, they're not. I don't feel like they're giving back what we've been giving them. Like where are all of our Democrat leaders with these marches? Where they're organizing them? Are they speaking for us? I don't see what they're doing. I think it's great that the everyday people are doing it, but they're our representatives. We voted for them to represent us, and they're not doing it.
I think that the Democrat Party has made a serious error. Doesn't that sound silly? Oh, got something new to say? No, the whole concept is I've never liked the Democratic Party because from the time I was old enough to register, I just felt they took black people for granted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was no, okay, we want to work with you. If you were black, you were going to be Democratic. And I wasn't even political in those days. And the older I got, the more resentful I got. That's part of their downfall. And I don't think, it's like parents, by the way. I'm a parent and I have a lot of kids. And my whole life, everything I do, I teach parenting to other parents. Well, who else? Okay.
Well,
to myself.
Prospective parents.
You're right. But it's almost kind of like the same thing of taking things for granted. They have to reach out, that you don't have to realize that this constituency, these kids of yours, are going to follow every... And so the leader just has not, I believe, and I'm sure somebody wrote this, but this, I think, Hillary's campaign felt the momentum from the Obama campaign in the black community was going to follow her. Mm-hmm. I know very well black folks, if they had a headache or a toothache on election day, just said, I'm not going to the poll. When Obama ran, you could have a broken leg without a cast or a crutch, and you got to the poll. So it's hurtful.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I think that they have helped to put this country where it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's fair to say.
Absolutely.
I feel like people of color in general, we're very fed up. Like we're fed up with Democrats. There's this assumption that we just owe them our votes, and we're not people. We're not human beings. We don't. Our demands are not important. It's like we're too. You'd have to be. It's almost like you have to be an idiot to vote Republican.
Well,